Hello friends, today I'm going to be taking you through my method for drawing realistic hair with colored pencils, a technique which I believe is very effective, time-saving, but still allows you to achieve a very realistic result. In fact, probably more realistic than the result you would get if you used other methods. In this example, I'll be doing brunette hair, but the technique applies to any type of hair. The first thing I do after drawing my outline is to map out the shadows or the darkest sections of the hair using a dark color. In this study, I used the dark amber. This helps to give a general sort of monochromatic view of the drawing and also helps guide my shading. You don't have to pick out all the shadows at a go, just the major ones. You can always pick out the other shadows later. The next step is to shade in the base layer. This is the lightest color that you can see across the entire region of hair being shaded. The purpose of the base layer is to create depth by helping to cover or conceal some of the white grain of the paper. In this example, the base layer was light amber, but there was also a lot of grey tones at the top half of the hair, so I layered some light grey in addition to the light amber around that region of the hair. I then went in and layered the other darker colors on top of the base layer, like you can see me do here. Now I'm moving to the other sections of the hair and following the same principles, shading in my base layer first. After, I went in and layered my darker colors on top of the base layer. So in this example, that included the dark brown and also the dark amber. Pay attention to the direction of the hair all through this process. Don't try to draw individual strands of hair because in reality, we see hair in groups except for a few flyaway hairs which we'll get to in a bit. Also, at this stage of the drawing, we are more concerned about the covering of the tooth or white grain of the paper, so the approach should be more of shading rather than trying to draw individual strands of hair. So I keep going back and forth and redefining certain areas of the drawing until I'm satisfied with what I see. The next step is to go in with a solvent and blend out the layers. I use a paintbrush to apply the solvent. This step is very important. It's basically the reason we'll be saving so much time with this technique. The solvent breaks down the pigment of the colored pencils and spreads them across the paper. This helps to conceal the whites of the paper much faster while giving the entire drawing a more realistic look at the same time. When blending with the solvent, try as much as possible to blend the lighter areas of the drawing before moving to the darker areas. That way, you would avoid contaminating the lighter areas with the darker colors. However, if for some reason you want to blend the darker region first, you can do that, but rinse the brush off the darker colors with the solvent before moving to the lighter colors. I wait for a few minutes for the solvent to dry out and then go in with my colors again and apply them in the same manner as I did before blending. The purpose of this is to create more depth. I then blend for a second time, again in the same manner as the first. So typically I do 2 rounds of blending with the solvent. I then go in a third time with the colored pencils, but this time the main purpose is to create details. So this is why I shade in the highlights where I need to and also ensure that my shadows are as dark as they are supposed to be. I also draw a few flyaway hairs at this stage. So you can see me go in with the black colored pencil at this stage just to really define the shadows. I use the crafting knife to draw in the flyaway hairs that tend to move across the main clumps of hair. I gently incline the knife to an angle and move in the direction of the hair. This reveals the lighter layers beneath the hair and creates the illusion of a flyaway hair. This is a very useful tool. In realistic art, the smallest details make the biggest difference. There are a few more things to take note of when using this technique, but before I get to that, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tips and tutorials. Also, I've got a completely free ebook on the basics of realistic colored pencil art. I'll put a link to it in the description. Please check it out, especially if you are a beginner. It contains a lot of tips. The paper choice for this type of drawing is very important. I use a rough textured or vellum surface paper for this technique. These kind of papers allow you to do multiple layering, which is essential for this method. Also, ensure that your pencils are sharp at all times so as to get into the grain of the paper a little more easily. So I'm basically doing the same thing on the right. I started by shading in the shadows and then went ahead to do my layering and blending. Repeated that step and then ended with the details. When drawing flyaway hairs that tend to stick out of the main clumps of hair, be sure to apply very little pressure to create the illusion of thin hair. The last thing I do is to look at the entire drawing and make tiny adjustments where I need to. If we were to do this entire process using the burnishing technique rather than using a solvent, it would take so much time and effort, and I would actually argue that the results will not look as realistic, especially for the type of paper we are using. If you enjoyed watching this, be sure to check out this video where I discuss all you need to know about realistic portrait drawing with colored pencils. See you in the next one.